So let us bring some other people on board so that they're not just looking at us making here yoga. So hi, Liz. Hi, Anna Sophia. How are you doing?
Hello, Peter. Hello, Donna. Doing
Hello.
fantastic.
Very
Doing
good.
well.
Luis and Anna Sophia are coming to us, although I'm not 100% sure if Anna Sophia is also based in Calgary, but are representing UX Calgary. Also, one of our classics in 24 hours of UX. So, we're really happy to have you again. It's always a pleasure. How has the day been going so far?
It's incredible. I mean, there are so many great speakers before of us and ahead of us. It's just a fantastic group to be part of. And I hope all of you that are staying up late because of us, I have to say thank you. And if you have some coffee or anything else that is keeping you up, yeah, I hope this next hour is a really great pleasure to have you.
Very good. How long have you been here? Have you followed us earlier today as well, or just jumped in?
Well, for me, on and off. I stay late at night, and yeah, let's say it's a interesting day full of meetings. So I've been present, but at the same time not listening. So I'm keeping myself for the videos. I think that's going to be the best time to really
Very good.
keep
We do
bring
get
those.
some of those comments every now and again. Like, I'm just keeping it open, next to doing stuff in Figma. So,
Right.
you know, this is great. It's really there for you to, like, oh, that was interesting. Okay, I'll make note of that. And or give us all your attention. That works with us as well. And Luis, Anna Sophia, without further ado, I would give over the stage. Donna, is there anything you'd like to add?
Nothing from me.
All right, awesome. So, Anna Sophia and Lewis, over to you, and we'll be here in the backstage if you have any questions.
Okay, fantastic. And now that being said, guys, if you are designing or working or doing something else while Sofia is talking, come on, guys. No, I'm joking. I hope you are having a great time. And first, welcome to Calgary UX. I can only say that this is our third time that we have joined to 24 hours of UX, and three is a magic number. And in case that you don't know us, we are a open community and it's located in Calgary, but everybody is welcome. And our goal is to have better interactions and more human connections. And yeah, let's say we are working hard to bring empathy and design expertise all around the world. And today we are having the pleasure of joining us well, Ana Sofia Gonzalez. And just to be sure, where are you located right now, Ana Sofia? Where are you?
I'm always everywhere, but right now I'm in Seattle, Washington, in the U.S. But like last Friday, I was in Mexico, so on and off.
Viva Mexico. Yeah, home is where the heart is, or as I say, home is wherever you can find Mexican food, and it's sort of good. Well, and yeah, just a bit of a small introduction about Ana Sofia Gonzalez. She's the senior Microsoft a lead, design lead, and yeah, she's doing an amazing job at democratizing innovative solutions, and she's been working on UX over 10 years. And yeah, well, she's great at bringing diverse perspectives and kind of bringing her own flavor on design leadership and ethical principles. And she's bringing a really good question. And this is a question that I've been hearing all this time when I hear the news, when I see the gas prices, when I hear about COVID and everything and so on. It's like, so what now? So what now? So what now, Ana Sofia? Please tell us. So what now? So this is the opportunity to shine. Please, Ana Sofia, the floor
Thank
is
you.
yours.
Thank you so much. Just want to make sure, am I sharing my PowerPoint and the presenter skills?
It's a beautiful PowerPoint.
Okay, I'm just making sure you don't have my notes. Great. So, hi everyone. Thank you so much for still being
Oh,
awake.
yes.
We actually are
We're
seeing.
seeing
Oh,
it.
you are. You are. Oh,
Yeah,
oh,
yeah, yeah.
cool. Okay, perfect. Let me do this again then, so you don't see my actual Notes. Let's see here. This presenter view. Okay. Well, let's just play it by ear then. I have backup option to see my notes here, so let me just open it up. Perfect. Okay, so great. Thank you so much, everyone, again, for being here and for the great introduction, Luis. Luis and I have been talking for over a year and a half, back and forth, by me giving a talk in the Canada and Flexible, and we just became in contact. So thank you so much for inviting me, and thank you that I've been able to represent UX Calgary. So what now? There has been so many things happening the past 2 years, from looking at Brexit to having like the protests in Hong Kong. So very political movements to, we know that Ukraine and Russian war. So it's been a lot of, just besides the pandemic, the health, a lot of things like drainage, even like global warming. Like I think it was a year, 2 years ago when like most of California, Malibu got burned. It's just been a lot on us. At the end of the day, we even saw that Meghan Markle and the prince left the monarchy, and it was the first time ever since, I think it's the second time in ever that the Olympics were postponed. They were not even postponed during the World War II. So imagine that, like all the changes we've been having. And then we also see changes in the technology world, right? We are seeing that AR is being come back, and then we've seen like more about this like automotive self-driveless cars. We see Elon Musk in Twitter everywhere and doing the SpaceX and getting Tesla up and running. So we've seen from everything, from the political movements, from the weather, from like the climate change, to a lot of social norms that have been changing, and the technology. The good thing about this is that now we know that COVID is more harmless. With the rollout of the vaccine, there's still a lot of COVID, but many people have been able to save their health. So it's not all bad, right? When everybody comes on board in a line to do something for the well-being, it happens, and it can happen quickly too. So, but let's just talk about, now that we were like as a hermit in our own bubbles, taking everything in, all the chaos that's happening in the world, in order to come back into the world, let's just think about the basics. Let's just think about the fundamentals for each person. And at the end of the day, it's by following the hierarchy of needs. First, you need the basic needs, which are like your physiology and safety needs. And then the psychologically, and then what really makes you feel fulfilled. And at the end of the day, safety, it should be about belonging. I love Brené Brown. So whenever I have the chance, I will talk about Brené Brown. But it's a lot about how you can feel safe at work, being yourself, doing the products that you like, designing, being creative. And it just comes from that basic need, having that safety to be your authentic self. Because from there, everything will trickle out better. And so at the end of the day, right now we're talking about AI. So it's taking those basic needs and as well applying those basic needs into the products. And there's so many toolkits now with AI. I know AI is still an emerging technology, but some companies have done it for a while now, and they have some responsible guidelines, and we should just all really use it. I put like Google, IBM's, Microsoft has some as well. They're all very different, but it tailors to the same thing. Let's do the right thing for the people. And so let's just go back to the safety. How can we make our users feel safe as well? And then, but in order to really, really define that into our product, we have to know ourselves. We have to find our purpose. Go ahead.
Sorry, one tiny detail, and this is in order of making an example of so what now. Right now, your PowerPoint is just showing the first slide.
What?
So yeah, I know. What now?
So what now? So it's for all of you to guess what now. I have a lot of imagination.
We planned that, guys. That was absolutely intentional. So I really Sofia once again.
For letting me know. Yeah, I was all writing so many different slides. Let me see if this works. Is it going? or is it still the first one?
Sadly, still on the first one.
Okay. So what we're gonna have to do then, I guess, it's just go from here. Because I don't know what's happening to the actual sharing of the window.
Adjusting. Excellent.
Anyways, we'll resolve this agile process. So this is where I talked about like the political movement. We talked about the climate change. Talk about Meghan Markle and the prince leaving the British monarchy, and then we talk about Tesla and creative innovations, and then the vaccines, and then the basic needs. And here we have the basic needs, and then the different toolkits. So the Google AI, Microsoft, IBM. And then now we're talking about finding your purpose. So great. So now that we know that everybody needs to have that safety in order to come back and be their most authentic selves, in order to have this sense also for the users and the product, we really have to understand ourselves. We really need to find our purpose as well. Like, who are we as a designer? Who are you as a designer? And then what are you bringing to that product, to that service, whatever you're building? And in order to do that, I've been lately into the spirituality world, and I'm mixing it with tech. So I want to all of you, this is going to be like a little experiment, to close your eyes right now. And then I want you to take a very deep breath in. Keep breathing, and out. And now feel your body a little more relaxed, especially all of you that have been ongoing with in the 24 hours of UX. We're going to do it again. Breathe in and out. Keep your eyes closed. And I want you to think, when was the time or a time when you were working or designing on a hackathon, wherever you were, that brought you just so much joy? What were you doing right there? Were you doing a design system, creating a toolkit? Were you talking to customers, understanding their pain points? Were you collaborating with cross-discipline like engineers, PMs to know what to build? Was it the first thing you ever shipped? What brought you that joy and excitement that you can feel even like in your belly? Now take another deep breath. In and out. Now open your eyes. This is just a little exercise to remember what brings us joy at work. What brings us joy when we're designing? What part of the process brings you joy? From there, you can really start understanding what you crave at work and what you need at work in order to have that joy and that spark. What motivates you? Analyze your personal goals and find how your company can support them in your product. Be genuinely excited about what you're doing, because that will trickle down into the product. Discover any ways that you can help the product be better, help the users, help the nonprofits, whatever you're doing. So for me, it's just first really find your purpose, find what gives you that joy. There's other tools to know exactly what gives you that. So there's the let me pronounce it right, Ikigai, which is a Japanese concept meaning of a reason of being. So this one, if you create 4 circles, 1 on top, 1 overlapping in the bottom, and 2 on the side overlapping, you write down what you love on the first circle up top. Find out what you're good at on the left circle. Find out what earns you money on the down one, and find out what the world needs on the right circle. From there, into those interconnected circles, you can just write your passion, your mission, your vocation, your profession. And in the middle, what aligns is your dream, your purpose, your true vocation. So really what brings you that satisfaction, that delight, that excitement that can really entitle to like what the world needs and what you can do as a profession. Another way that you can really know like who you are, what brings you joy, or what part of the process is by doing those kind of LinkedIn tags. It's like, I am a what that does what, and how do you do it? So for example, for me, I'm a passionate motivator who simplifies complexity through sharing empathetic understanding and provides underrepresented people unlimited possibilities of what they can achieve. Or as well, I'm an inclusive designer who simplifies that complexity through sharing empathetic understanding. Just start looking at the ideal goal, like ideal sentence of who you want to be known as or who you want to be, or in order to align those goals and those values too. So I'm here to collaborate with product teams by humanizing the product's experiences. And you can always use those tags to LinkedIn, or when you're going to introduce yourself to new colleagues or to a client, a customer, you can say like, I am here. I am a very inclusive designer who likes to simplify things. Like that can be your brand, and people will know what you enjoy, what you are, what you like to do. But now that you know who you are, what you really value, what brings you joy, put it into the product team that aligns to your to your purpose. So let's go. If you want to live a happy life, don't tie to a goal. Don't tie to people or objects. Don't tie to a specific product. Tie to a goal. If the goal is just to simplify things, to help you like users, just don't go to specifics. Just tie to an objective. And at the end of the day, like values and goals is what you should be looking in the product. So ask yourself, do I believe in the product? Is it cater to my purpose? Will it help me grow? Then ask the why now. Is it so important to me to be at the right place at the right time? So is it a market fit, like that product? And that like, is the market ready for it? I can give you so many examples. For example, Microsoft had designed shipped a tablet much more before the iPad, but the market was not ready for it. That's something that Steve Jobs was so good at, and Apple still's good at, knowing when to ship the products at the right timing, at the right market. And then if you can help with the product definition, setting a vision, defining principles, user needs. If the product vision has been defined, be sure that you believe in it and that you agree with the principles and the values. Remote employees have to learn to be disciplined, self-motivated to succeed, but they should still hear from managers about the company's bigger goals. It's all about, especially right now with the Great Resignation, about the company values, about the goals, about the culture. So it should always be a mutual match on what you're working on and where you are at. I love this quote from Brené Brown. There are no guarantees in the arena. We will struggle. We will even fail. There will be darkness. But if we are clear about the values that guide us in our efforts to show up and be seen, we will always be able to find the light. We will know what it means to live brave. So now that you know that, okay, this is what brings me joy, this is what my values are, and you tie to the product that you want to be at, or service, consultancy, whatever it is, now go and integrate those principles and values that you have into the product. And so now I'm going to give you a little bit of a guidelines on AI. So I will be using the Microsoft's AI responsive toolkit here to tell you the principles I chose for the product I'm leading, which is called Process Advisor. It's an AI tool where we show you your process in order for you to optimize it and save money at the end of the day and automate it. So how can we do that digital transformation story for companies? So first, it should be simple and seamless. So here we have Cortana saying, so let me go back. Smooth, frictionless experiences within and across the apps. The whole service needs to be intuitive, accessible, and effective. That's what the principles I wrote. ensure that the experience is delivered in a way that the users would expect, given their social and cultural context. So here, really following that Microsoft guideline for AI by delivering the AI system services, including the behaviors and presentation in a way that follows the social and cultural norms. Keep in mind that the social and cultural norms across groups may vary in cultures. And so, for example, here we have Cortana. Cortana matches relevant social norms by using polite and socially appropriate tone and apologizing when unable to find a contact. So here, I'm sorry, I couldn't find mom in your contacts. Who did you want to call again? And then for in my product, to give you a little bit how I applied it, it's giving that context about for adoption and first-time users. We do this guided tour, and this is, okay, this is not your data. So they will know exactly what to expect, like what's the value for them for our tool. They have never used it. So here we go, like, as you are a finance manager, as a finance manager, you really care about the invoicing approvals. Look here about the liquidation that's taking 2 hours more. So we made it into storytelling for the user to really be able to understand the data they're seeing and to really understand and try to create that value. So just be as simple and seamless as you can. And that's the principle I put in our product. Transparency. Transparency is so important in AI everywhere. So when I was designing last year, the Teams integration inside Dynamics for Sales, we included chats that you can attach to a record in the CRM tool, which is a customer relationship management tool. And so if you see here, we have suggested context for the sellers who to talk to. Sometimes the companies are huge, like Microsoft, right? So as sellers, sometimes you don't know all of the sellers across the field in Microsoft. So can we suggest the key people that can help them close that deal? But then at the end of the day, we really have to focus on the telling them that it's suggested. They haven't really talked to them. So they should really have that context that this chat has not been started, right? So it's really having that transparency, like this is just from ourselves. And then you can see it in Amazon too, or any shopping website, inspired by your browsing history. So they're giving you transparency of where they're getting that data from and putting it out there for you. So following that, making clear what the systems do to create that transparency for the users. I wish I could put it bigger for all of you. Let's see if I could do this, but yeah. Oh, maybe I could do this. There we go. This helps better. Cool, great. So you can see it a little bit bigger. Okay, so next one, user control. This is so important, giving the users the control of what they want to see and what they don't want to see. So here, by using like the text predictions, this one is from Outlook. Microsoft Words. They provide global controls for flagging a range of proofreading issues, allowing you to customize its behavior to expand on spelling and grammar checking capabilities for ensuring document readability. And this was this one. And then the Microsoft Outlook's text prediction, this one, makes it clear what the system can do by providing an introductory blurb. It also provides global controls by providing the option to turn off the text predictions. So whenever you're going to implement a new AI feature, you need to give them a control to opt out. I personally, one of the designers that I start opt out and then they can opt in, but it's fine if you prefer opt in and then they can opt out, but always giving them that control. Give them the control. So allow the user to really understand how it behaves, and then if they don't want it. And then relevant with added value. This is so key for AI. If you put something that it's not in context and at the right time, then it loses the meaning and the value. So it should be at the right time. And it has to provide the right value. So here you can look at the Outlook time has services based on context. So for example, when it accounts for a current location, destination, and real-time traffic information. So here's like, oh, we see that you have brunch with friends. Do you want to get directions? So they put those controls of the directions at the right time. And then here, for example, Bing, which also Google search does, is if you search for example, the Top Gun movie, the new movie, they will give you at the beginning upcoming show times near you. So it's also, it wouldn't make sense if they would give me one in New York, right? Or if, so it's just giving the right relevant information at the right time. So really show contextual relevant information, and it should be time service based on context. Next, tailor to the user. This is so important. Like, we should learn from the AI and from their behavior, from the user's behavior, and present the right information. We can't always generalize and give everything to the users and treat them the same. They're all different. So for example, here, Viva Insights that we use on Microsoft, it tells me based on my interests, like what I might like, what I would like to see. And then it gives you my unassigned or like what I haven't completed. And it gives you my recommendations. Also, for example, this is pretty cool in Word. It tells you here from recently used. So learning from the behavior from the user to give the right information. So personalize it to them. And then open and safe. Be transparent and open of what you're doing, and also make them feel safe that they won't mess up. Like if they do something, like the data won't get destroyed, or they're doing something that they can't undo, right? So give them that safety needs, and going back to how I started, go back to those basic needs to make them feel safe. For example, Apple Music says, oh, you disliked it. We'll recommend this for you. So it gives you that context of what you did. So you can know, you can always go back and like it again. So it can give you recommendations. In the product I'm designing, we just launched this, is we give them as well like transparency, like, hey, go try our demo data and you won't be able to mess up anything. It's giving them a safe place where they can play with the tool and not feel all overwhelmed as well. And being really open of what they will go be doing. For example, here you would go through a finance process with a guided tour. Be really open about those things. So convey the consequences of the user actions. And be reliable and accountable. Integrity at the end of the day. So teams, when they're in preview mode, they give you like, hey, this feature is in preview. So there might be a lot of bugs. And then, for example, Uber Eats, DoorDash, all of those food delivery services, they are trying to tell you exactly like 10 to 20 minutes. We can't tell you 10, and usually it's less than 20. So we'll give you 10 to 20 minutes. And then also giving them why you're recommending those things. So for example, here in the marketing Dynamics 365, it tells you like, what are these ideas? What is all of the suggestions? So make clear what the system can do, what it can do. And then support efficient correction too. We are not perfect. AI is not perfect. So say, okay, we might be wrong in the AI, just let us know. So here, for example, in Bing, it says including results for autocorrection. Or do you want results only for autocorrection? So it's really giving you an option to go back. And then here in customer service inside Dynamics, the AI automatically generates a summary of a customer chat into an issue description and resolution. But before the summary is sent, it offers the users ability to edit the generated summary and make any changes they like. So allow them to create that personalized AI, allow them to do changes to it. Sometimes you will nail, and it's okay, like, because every person is different and the mental modes will be different, but allow them to customize those things. So at the end of the day, For me, I put the principles for our product into my values. So simple and seamless. For me, I love harmony. I dislike conflict, and so for me, keeping harmony everywhere, it's better. So bringing that personal value into the product principle. Transparency, on which is honesty. It's been for me, honesty is the best policy that creates trust. And then giving user control is caring about the user, caring like, oh, you don't want that, we're different, great, that's fine. And then relevant with added value is being adaptable. I'm a very adaptable person, and I can adapt to new situations, to challenges, to cities. I lived different countries, and so bringing that into the product, tailored to the user. Diversity. I lead our diversity employees resource group at Microsoft. I lead too. So for me, it's all about having the voices of everybody that are different be heard. Because when there's diversity of thought, that's when the most creative and inspiring products come. Open and safe. Be vulnerable. We're not perfect. The product is not going to be perfect. What we design is not going to be perfect, but it's okay. It's just being vulnerable and accepting it, and then taking the feedback, doing introspection. And vulnerability creates a sense of belonging. And then reliable and accountable. So have integrity. Know when something's going wrong and accept it and say, I'm responsible for that. Having integrity, it's what defines a good leader. And then, so now that we have that, how you can put those AI principles into the product and connect them to your value. I'm going to give you a few tips how to become a new type of leader. So with that, what now? We have to change how we do leadership as well. So lead with empathy and compassion. At the end of the day, you should really care for your colleagues and coworkers. We're all human beings. Like we've seen like this past 2 years, colleagues with recently newborn babies crying, I'm sorry, this is happening, the dog coming in, the kid running. And it's just being understanding and have compassion at the end of the day, right? So, and especially right now that we have the hybrid work environment. So just really like recognize when people are going through something difficult. And this is all through having those vulnerable conversations in order to have that compassion and really lead with that empathy. Next, be self-aware and have emotional intelligence. I am in control of my emotions. I love this GIF. So we really have to be self-aware. Ask a lot about, do introspections. Like, did that conversation go well with this colleague or with the user or with my manager? Like, did it go as I expected? What could I have done differently? Having like, oh, I used this negative connotation term, so that's why I created friction. I used a lot of but whenever the other person was talking. So just having that self-awareness and emotional intelligence will bring so much, because you will be able to make other people feel heard and seen as well. So emotional intelligence is really best defined as the capacity for awareness, understanding, and management of one's emotions. So emotional intelligence, it manifests in the ways we engage empathetic with others. It has been cited that it's a beneficial leadership skill when it comes to managing others. In today's world, as we near the end of the global pandemic and look hopefully to the future, emotional intelligence will not only be advantageous in the workplace, but also necessary. We're really going to have to breathe in and let go of all those emotions when we have conversations with other people, because then it can affect how we represent ourselves as well. And then communication and transparency. So do active listening. Don't just listen and just hear what you want to hear. Really pay attention to what the other person is saying. Try to be present in that moment. Don't start thinking about what I have to do next when you're in the one-on-one. Focus on that person. Engage in constant updating, especially right now that many people are remote. You have to be updating in order to continue that relationship. and especially for cross-discipline teams, engineers to know what you're doing, PMs to know what you're doing, managers to know that you're doing, and then colleagues too. And then be candid with your communication as well. Then be flexible and adaptable. This is so important right now. Be curious. Think like a sociologist at the end of the day. Develop fluid structures that are democratic, agile, and versatile. So today's leaders should be ready to adapt to those new future uncertainties. Right now, we haven't seen so much uncertainties as ever, like the gas prices, like continuous changes, the supply chain things. Leaders are expected to be aware of new changes and stay on top of what is happening next. Flexibility and being ready to make these changes is huge. You need to know when to pivot. It's okay, like the market fit. Not right now. Let's not ship it right now. We put 2 years into this, but it won't. If we put it live, it won't work. So knowing when to adapt, knowing when something is not working, letting it go. And then again, accountability and integrity. So the best leaders take full responsibility for their team's performance. It was not, oh, this so-and-so didn't do well, but I did. No, you're all a team. You're all a product. You're all one. So especially as leaders, whether the outcome is good or bad. As a leader, you should aim to praise your team when they perform well and provide constructive criticism to help them improve. I usually, when there's constructive feedback, is doing it a one-on-one. Praise people in front of others, and then do those critical conversations in one-on-one. It's also important for you to take responsibility when you have made a bad decision or done something unfavorable. We're all human and prone to make mistakes, but effective leaders recognize their areas of improvement and are open with their team about them, making a point of serving as a role model, and your team is likely to demonstrate accountability too. So accountable leaders take responsibility for their actions and the steps that they need to do. And it's okay. It's all about learning. We all are going to make mistakes, and it's okay. But it's just not taking that too seriously. It's just we learn from it, don't make it again, and move on. So you cannot change any society unless you take responsibility for it, unless you see yourself as belonging to it and responsible for changing it. At the end of the day, we are the next leaders of anything that is coming out, right? So as designers, we need to take responsibility of what we ship and what we share to users and to people in the society and to the world. So lastly, create impact. Use your purpose to create impact. Go back to those values, let them follow you through where you need to go through, and then just let it create the impact that it needs. So do more than belong, participate, do more than care, help, do more than believe, practice. So now is the why. So why wait? Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ana Sofia. It has been a really centering and lovely presentation. I think it's the kind of message I would love to hear every day, and especially in the last 2 years. If I could record this and listening to this until it finally gets into my brain, I would love to hear that. Thank you so much. And I have a couple of questions that I think the chat would like to know. First, the first one comes from Peter. He's really excited about the practices you have. And he asks, has it ever happened that even though you know of this, it was challenging to put this into practice in a specific situation?
Has it happened that? Yes. It's been challenging, but just grabbing data. So the only way I can influence a product team is through data. Using data, and there's so much data already about AI. So I just try to leverage it, especially at Microsoft. We have a designated research team on AI. So I try to leverage everything I can. And then it's just going back, like the simple and seamless is so hard to make something so complex, and especially enterprise. simple. So I always have to go back with the product team. It's like, let's make it easier. Like, where's the value for the user? Let's go back. So it is a lot of repetition. It is a lot of like gathering that data. And also the best thing that I've done is really talking to users with the cross disciplines, engineering and engineering, make them listen. And that's where that alignment, they go like, whoa, now I understand what you're talking about, giving the value, because they see how they're like having so much trouble to access things. So it's really, again, that transparency of like our process, so they can understand also where we're coming from.
That's fantastic. And in that sense, may I add a follow-up question? Because you mentioned bringing your own personal values and principles, right? So at the same time, you're doing research, and we're talking about aspects that could be very concrete, and you don't want to introduce bias, but also you are supportive of some results. So how do you navigate that?
So one of my big principles is the diversity of thought. So I always second guess myself, and I always ask others for their feedback and ask others for their perspective using their real active listening skill. So that's how I try to not get so biased around my values and those things. It's really bringing those diverse perspectives. And when I created these principles, I actually invited like the researcher, the product owner, other cross disciplines to see them, and then to tell them like, hey, this is not the one I think, or not, to make it more collaborative effort at the end of the day. So it's just, I brought my heart into it, and then being vulnerable, and then they can say like, oh, maybe let's rethink this one, and it's not taking personally, having that emotional intelligence to be self-aware and be like, okay, that's fine, let's regroup on this one.
I love that. So in many ways, collaboration and diversity helps you to keep yourself honest. That's a really, really good insight. I love that. And also that really helps quite a lot of people to understand where you're coming from, and also the design process. So everybody wins there. This is fantastic.
Thank you.
I have another question, and this one is from Basman, and she says, well, this is so interesting. I wonder, on real life projects, how do you approach these guidelines? I think this is related to the artificial intelligence guidelines. And how do you make sure that you have a truly responsive IA?
So whenever I create a new feature, I really start by putting, I love the what, why, how, right? And then the who, the key personas. So there I put the real problem statement. What are we really solving for with this feature? Because then later people will be like, I can put this, and like, is it solving for this problem? No, right? I do this, and like, is it solving for this? So that's how I can keep aligned to go to the simple practice. And then as well, I put a lot of the I love to do user journey maps too, and then I put a little bit of this guidelines there. So I put like, where the user might feel frustrated here, let's make it simple. The user might feel like not trusting the AI outputs, where the friction might come from the user journey map, and then I align it to the principles. But the other one that I've done for the real life projects is just putting the personas, the who and the what and the why. And then when I go to the design, so I start like that and when I'm creating a meeting with the cross discipline team. And then so I go back every time. What's the problem we're trying to solve? This is the principle that we said is going to be for this feature. So when I'm presenting the designs and they're like, no, let's do this, that, or maybe more complex, or not giving the users freedom of controlling, like, I don't want more pop-ups, remove those teaching bubbles, let's give them that control. So I go back to it, like, remember, I started the presentation with the values, with the key problem, and like who the user is and where the friction will be.
Wow, that's really good. I always imagine of these guidelines being more like a heuristic evaluation, but it's really fantastic to hear that you can put it in a user journey and then drive that and shape it all along. This is really valuable. I love that.
Thank you.
Amazing. And well, there is a question from Sri. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. So he or she says, as a leader, what methods work for you to align a culturally diverse team?
So I'm a very transparent person, and so I think that works a lot. So even like I'm right now, it's a little like chaotic yet, but we're getting there. I'm the design manager, and I have a report, and I'm hiring as well. But meanwhile, I hire right now. There's 100 engineers and PMs for my product, so it's a lot of work, let's say, right? But so how can I create this inclusive culture? And it was by being very transparent. Right now, some engineers don't talk to each other, but then the things come on me because they like ship something, and then but they want another feature to be designed. So I've been creating like this channel in Teams where I put design updates for everyone. What did design do this week? And then when I'm designing, I bring those people that I will be working on, or even one-on-ones, so they can feel part of the work of the solution. And then at the end of the day, that also brings inclusivity. So, and then with my report, I really, for her onboarding, really tried it to make the most smooth as possible. And I gave her like onboarding buddies and told her like who can be mentor of her. And then I've been trying to really focus on her to feel included in the projects with engineering team and the product and the PMs. So it's been a lot of like just being transparent to create that trust, and that trust will be key. And for me, being at enterprise, it's challenging sometimes with the design team. Sometimes it's hard to really say why we have the value, because it's very engineer driven, especially as a product of 35 years dynamics. So I was able to win the PMs over in 2 months, and now I'm in their chat. I was in their moral event. I'm part of the strategy now for the product, which many of my colleagues are not. So it was just by being transparent, literally, and bringing them into my user like testing, and telling them like why I was thinking what I was thinking and where was it coming from, and that created like that inclusive mindset.
Wow, that's sounds like a lot of work. I mean, it seems like a okay. How do you know that you are bringing all the information to the people that needs it, right? Because you are interacting with quite a lot of engineers, and then you need to bring all that information to your
Yes.
team. How are you sure that you're bringing the right information and being transparent?
Yeah, so I think it's being curious. So for example, when I talked with the engineer lead that owns like the engineers, the team part, I asked him for the key contacts for key people for this. And like this engineering manager. So I talked to engineering managers like, oh, let's bring this person. I don't want to put engineers on random meetings because then that's useless for them. So it's mostly around sharing like through chat, like, hey, and like on the chat group. Like I know who the key people are, and then if I find out there was another key person, I add them to the chat group so they have that context in the history. So like that, I just continue asking, and it's been curious, like who, and also like thinking of the future, trying to predict, like I'm doing this feature, but it touches this other feature that this other engineer they might be interested in. So I connect those bridges.
Understandable. So yeah, you're bringing those connections. That's fantastic. Potentially, this is going to be the last question for right now. Let's say we have hopefully a Q&A, and this is more about which books would you recommend? And this is coming from Joyce.
I really the latest one I read. It's called Inspire. So that one is how different disciplines should be part of the product strategy and the why, and what the superpower it is. And so that will really bring you that kind of empathetic, transparent understanding, like why to involve someone from sales in your design process. Like who would have thought someone from sales should be included? But it's like, how are they going to sell your product? How will the users perceive it? So it changes a lot of the features on the adoption part. So so that book is great. The other one I've been reading as a new manager, it's called The Leader Lab. So how can you really manage those conversations and be more curious about like when there's friction? So be more curious, like let's go back to the why. So you don't solve it for other people and you can help them grow. And then the last one that I really like is the culture code. And that talks a lot about how creating healthy work cultures and team cultures.
Amazing. And well, I was amazed that you quoted.
COD, yeah, code.
Nice.
Yeah.
And you quoted Brené Brown's.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Brené Brown. Yeah. So I've read all her books. So Daring Greatly is a good one. That's the one that's top of mind. But there's plenty of her that she does a lot of leadership and being vulnerable and how to create the trust, especially in big corporations.
Right. Yeah, I think the part where she mentions about empathy and not shaming people or trying to solve trauma, it's really important when we're dealing about design and connections.
Yeah, like the big one that I've learned as a new manager, I try to say like the opportunities or challenges that presents us new opportunities. I had said the first time the weakness, and I'm like, no. So it's just knowing, but it's not a weakness. It's just where there's opportunity for becoming different and learning, right? So it's just having those key terms can really change how a conversation will go. And if people will receive the feedback or not as well. And you receive the feedback as well.
That's fantastic. And in that sense, is there any book that you recommend to your team? Let's say you're reading books about leadership, but what about your team? Is there something that you would like them to kind of keep reading?
Yeah, for me, I think the one in the Inspire book, I think is great because it touches about like product strategy and then like how to bring different cross disciplines together. So for me, that one's like on that side to help designers grow into more strategy and influencing roles.
Fantastic. Okay, so that's going to be on my pile. Absolutely.
Thank you.
Awesome stuff. Thank you, Anna Sophia and Luis. I really like that. I mean, we had three main themes for this year. We had me, we, and us. And I feel we mislabeled a few a bit because we didn't initially realize how much they are about the me. But I think this is one of those definitely that is really about sort of reflection. And we will have those kinds of talks still coming up, or at least maybe one for sure. So thank you very much. Are you okay to stick around for a Q&A session in a breakout?
Mm-hmm. Yes, of course.
Perfect. So in the left, top left corner, there's a little blue circle. Clicking on that, yeah, I don't know where it is because one of the backstage, I think, mirrors the non-backstage doesn't mirror, so it's a bit, I don't know which way to point, but it's in the top left corner. There's a blue circle. You can click on that. That takes you to the place where the attendees are, and then on the left-hand menu you can click on sessions, and then you can scroll down all the way almost to the bottom because we're near the end of the event, and you can find your session there. Go in, you should be able to join the stage there, and whoever from the attendees is interested to continue the discussions, how to build artificial intelligence, how to products, how to navigate the plethora of books around leadership, then do join Luis and Anna Sophia there. And in the meantime, we will continue here on the main stage.
Perfect. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you,
very
Anna.
much.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Donna.
Thank you for being here again.
Wonderful. And yeah, it's very exciting to see 8 it's coming. Take care.
Very good. All right. Talk to you soon.